Hello and welcome to the peer review video where we're gonna go over a sample peer review process from submitting as a draft for peer review, getting feedback and comments from your peers, and then using that feedback to revise the draft. So let's start. To begin with, this is a paper written for a writing project called A Place of Memory. It's a type of memoir that's focused on a specific place that's important to the author, to the narrator somehow. You can see the prompt for this project linked below. If you're not writing this exact project, it's still pretty similar. It's a narrative writing type of memoir, so it's pretty close to the project one you are working on right now. So let me show you the first sample I wrote. It's a pretty solid sample, I thought. It's a complete draft, so it hit the minimum word requirement. There's some parts that were missing though. I wasn't sure about my title, and I left these comments for my reviewers. I don't have a title, I'm not so sure about my introduction and opening, and I don't have a clear ending. I kind of felt like my paper was walking, and then suddenly fell off the cliff. That was my ending. So I kind of had a point there, but I wasn't sure if it actually fit the paper and if it felt like an ending. So these are the comments that I left for my reviewers. Not a lot. I probably could have asked for more guidelines, for more direction, or for more pointed questions, but that's all I had time for, as is often the case. So let me go over the comments I got. They show up as anonymous, and we did this peer review in Google Docs, which you might also be doing, but you might do it through Canvas peer reviews, and it might look different for you. Then you'll just get a Word document with your peers' comments, but the point is still the same. So you'll see that one reviewer shows up as anonymous with the red circle, and the other one is anonymous with blue. So these are two different people. And let me go over their comments, their feedback, and my reaction and how that influenced my revision process. So first of all, as the peer review guide said, the ideal feedback is you get a mix of praise and criticism, and I felt like my reviewers were really good with that. They pointed out the things that they liked about my paper, and I felt like, okay, this is what I'm going to retain. I'm definitely keeping those parts, and that's great. And then they pointed out things that were not clear, things that they wish I'd done more or less. So let's go over and see what this was all about. So the first one made a comment about this little remark I had, which was nice. The other commenter, though, suggested that I start in the middle of my second paragraph, and that was actually a good point. In the beginning of this paragraph, and by the way, you can read this paper, it's linked below as well. You can read this first draft. So I felt like I need to provide more context to the readers, because I'm writing about Moscow subway or metro, which is a place unfamiliar to most readers reading this paper and at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, right? I'm assuming not a lot of people are familiar with it or have heard about it or had any experience at all. So I felt like, okay, I'm going to provide them with enough background. But this reviewer also pointed out that sometimes it read like a Wikipedia entry, which I don't want to do. So in my revision, that was one of the points I focused on, providing enough background, but not sounding like it's an encyclopedia article. So this was a good idea, and I took it. I mostly followed the suggestion. I cut out this first part. I downsized it to just one little sentence in that first paragraph. And I sort of started the story right here. I first set foot in a Moscow subway in 2005, right? So that was a good suggestion. The same reviewer made a few other comments about how they wish I had more kind of scenes and descriptions, and I thought it was a valid suggestion or request. At the same time, I couldn't find any good instances where I would put more of that. I felt like I already provided a good amount of description and scenes and little details. I think I tried maybe adding a couple more points like that, but honestly, I felt like they were asking for something that I couldn't necessarily deliver, at least not in a paper this size. I'm already over my word limit here, so I kind of left this one hanging a little bit. This comment right here is a really valid concern that I added these images, but I couldn't figure out how to add captions in Google Docs. I know how to do it in Word, and I did it for the final draft. Once I took all of this and revised it and put it in a Word document, then I could add captions to these images explaining what they are and how they connect to the narrative. So that was a good point. I was already going to do that. I probably should have left a comment in my directions for the reviewers saying that, oh, just don't worry about the images. I'll fix that later. So that's something that I should have done. Now, there they wish I expanded on this, and I did in my revision. I thought it was a good point. This is a nice comment saying that, oh, they like the humor here, and I was glad that worked for them. These are mostly for, this comment is mostly asking for little clarification. I think I added a couple little things like that, explaining more how the timeline worked for my stay in Moscow, for my for getting acquainted with the subway more and getting used to it. Then there were a few other interesting comments. This reviewer said, good to see you showing us the bad as well as the good, but does this bad detract from the place as meaningful to you? I disagree. And another comment said that it's important that I acknowledge the bad things about this place, right? Not just the good parts. And I felt like this is what I was going for, to kind of giving an honest idea. And the same reviewer, the blue one, also left feedback that they weren't sure the information provided was great, but it seemed at times to switch from narrative to a Wikipedia entry. And they also said the bad stuff being described made me not want to visit there. And I felt like, well, this is not my point. This is not my purpose for this paper, right? So I don't want my readers to just say, oh, I'm packing my bags and flying to Moscow tomorrow. This place is amazing. No, that's not my goal. My goal is just to describe my own experience with it, which wasn't always good. There were plenty of bad things about it, even though the place is meaningful to me on multiple levels. So I did not act on that comment. I just left it there. If they feel like, after my description, if they feel like they don't want to visit this place, that's fine. And I'm okay with that. So, and you are perfectly fine also pointing out the good and the bad things about the place you picked, or any of your topics really in your personal narrative, right? It's a personal narrative. It's not a pamphlet, or it's not an ad, right? It's not an ad campaign you're creating for the topic. You're describing something honestly. So a few more points here. This comment said, it seems meant to be humorous, but I worry I'm misreading. No, this is definitely not humorous. This is me describing a scene of a violent attack I witnessed. And I clarified that in my later draft. So I've realized that, okay, that they might not get what I'm talking about here. So I clarified it, and I actually linked a little YouTube video showing one of those attacks, or one of the mayhems that the soccer fans sometimes create in Moscow. So I think that should clarify that. But it was good to see that, okay, my readers are not going to be sure what exactly I mean here. So that was great. And then there were a few suggestions for how to end the paper, which were really, really helpful. This reviewer pointed out that the conclusion is missing, or maybe adding one or two sentences will work, and I agreed. And they actually added some ideas for how I can wrap this up better and what can be developed, or maybe what topics I can touch on. So I was able to build on these comments that had to do with like, just helping me out build this conclusion better. And in my revisions, I'm going to demonstrate what that looked like. This is the next draft that I created. These are the revisions with changes being tracked in the Word document, right? These are all the changes that I made. I put this first part, right, that sounded like a Wikipedia entry. I reworked it, put it in the first paragraph, kind of opening up before I start my own story, right? And once I started the story, this is what I try to focus on exclusively, and I try to add a few more details, a few more descriptions here. Some of the parts were left mostly unchanged. Honestly, there was not a lot I wanted to change about the middle part of the paper. And then moving on, I added that YouTube video clarifying that that part was not intended to be humorous, right? And then I worked on my last paragraph. That's where most of my efforts went to. I tightened up a few descriptions here. I thought that I was providing a little bit too much here. And I clarified what exactly I meant, that this place provided some sort of social connectedness feeling, right? And I added a little bit more details about the current situation and kind of a lot of us feeling this sense of isolation due to the pandemic lockdowns and whatnot, right? And so remembering places like that where you were surrounded by tons and tons and tons of people every day, and with the common sense of purpose and common set of skills and navigating the place, right? It created some sort of unique sense of community that I miss sometimes. So I was able to expand on my points and make the whole point of the narrative a little bit clearer. So I was able to use the feedback the first reviewer especially provided, and I think the paper was made a lot stronger than it was before. And you can read the final draft, also linked below. So you have the first draft with the comments. You can look at the draft with the changes tracked, and then the final version posted as a PDF as well. So you can kind of see what the process might look like. So I hope this was helpful as an example of how peer review can really help you navigate your revision, how it can help you make your paper stronger on multiple levels. So good luck with this peer review process. I hope you'll get a lot out of it, and that you can be helpful to your peers as well. Thank you for watching.